I wonder what your thoughts are as a theologian. Is there room for a divine feminine aspect in modern Judeo-Christian Muslim religion?
Well, if there isn't, we're doomed. There's no question that one of the problems in the world today is excessive patriarchy, excessive yang energy. We've lost a balance of the masculine and the feminine in our own souls, but also in our institutions, which of course are projections of our souls. And the 16th century, which birthed Protestantism, really cut us off from the divine feminine. The Middle Ages is full of the divine feminine. There was a revolution in the 12th century, a goddess revolution. I mean, in 125 years, 500 cathedrals were built, like Chartres Cathedral, every one of them dedicated to Mary, the goddess, in the West. So that was the explosion. And what happened was that at the same time, then there was a revolution in architecture, but also in liturgy and celebration. That's what the Gothic represented. But also in education. The goddess reinvented education. She reinvented religion. And because a university was born at that time. And the university originally meant a place to find your place in the universe.
Yes.
Then when patriarchy took over in the 17th century, it became a place to find your job in a man-made world, which is a much, much smaller vision for what a university is and can be. And of course, what happened was wisdom got thrown aside, and instead we have knowledge is the purpose of education today. So we have knowledge factories, but no wisdom schools. Wisdom is feminine. She's feminine in the Bible. She's feminine around the world. Gaia is feminine. Mother Earth. So this is missing from all of our education, all of our professionals, from therapists to bankers to politicians to media people, have been saturated in a patriarchal view of the world that comes through education as we have it. And of course, that's also part of scientific materialism. This is part of what Rupert Sheldrake, I think, is fighting, that that there's no room in materialistic science for intuition, even though Einstein says that rationality should serve intuition, because it's intuition that we get values, not from the intellect, he says, but from intuition. So to me, another word for intuition is mysticism. And we have to bring this balance back. Like my most recent book is on Meister Eckhart. It was my favorite mystic, and he brings such a marvelous balance. I have 2 chapters in there on the divine feminine in Meister Eckhart's work, and his working with the women's movement of his day, the Beguines of the Middle Ages, because they were bringing the divine feminine back. And so, yes, absolutely, there have been times in religious history in the West that the divine feminine was alive and well, but we have to work at it, because culture itself has been hijacked by a patriarchal ideology and consciousness that is killing the planet quite literally, and our souls in the process.
Yeah, very much so, and I can't help but say idiocracy, for lack of a better term, but
idiocracy.
Yeah. It's an idiocracy, not an ideology.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Well, there you go. Yes.
We find ourselves in and I find it very exciting. Don't get me wrong. I don't feel that many people out there, especially within the activist world, or those that are doing the work that I'm doing, some of us get very frustrated. We're very concerned that the planet is just going to die, that the corporations have too much power, that we've gone beyond the point of no return. And in reality, I do feel that perhaps yes, we may not be able to get certain species back. We may never be able to get the Monsanto patent flower out of the trees, or pollen out of the trees or whatnot. But I certainly feel that the reality that in which we live in is created by us. And as we are, kind of what Rupert was saying in the reference to quantum physics and quantum mechanics is in how we observe is how the reality is going to react. And I wonder how that kind of fits in to spiritual work and or religion, for that matter. If our pastor is telling us gays are evil, then they're evil. If our pastor is telling us it's the end of the world, then it's the end of the world. If our pastor is telling us the goddess is evil, then the goddess is evil. But if our pastor is telling us there is a resolution, there is balance, there is growth, and we create that as a consciousness, going into the terminology of consciousness here, perhaps there is a solution based on our consciousness, and I wonder how that fits in with the work that you're doing.
Well, I think key to our survival, really the only thing our species has going for us is our creativity, and creativity is itself a motherly concept. Motherhood is something we all share, whether we're male or female. We're all capable of birthing. For example, to solve the horrible results of unclean fossil energy, obviously, we're capable of creating wind power and solar power and thermal power and wave power and everything else that is renewable, that is healthy, that is clean. And so those who put their creativity to work to do this, for example, in India now, they've invented a car that runs on air, compressed air.
I love it.
Well, that's kind of nice. I mean, air doesn't give out too much pollution unless humans do their thing with it, and it's still rather cheap. So, our imaginations are the key. Meister Eckhart said, what does God do all day long? God lies on a maternity bed giving birth. So the whole idea, the affirmation of birthing, of creativity, everything we are about, our educational systems, our political, economic, religious systems, must make creativity a priority today. And of course they don't. When there's a crunch in the education world, which is all the time, out goes the theater department, out goes music, out goes art and dance in our high schools, and then we wonder why the kids are angry or drop out. It's because they don't have the natural way to express their deepest feelings, which is, of course, through art. So that's just part of a patriarchal model of education, to think that art is a cherry on a cake that you
right.
can throw off anytime you have a budget crunch. That is super crazy. All these politicians, whenever they talk about education, all they're talking about is exams and science and math and technology. They're not talking about other expressions of being human. And what Einstein himself said is the basis of value, and that is intuition itself. We're not training intuition, but we're capable of it, and more people are getting fed up with this educational system, young people and their parents and grandparents. So, I mean, we're on a verge of a breakthrough. I just spoke 2 weeks ago at a big conference. There were 6,000 people in person and 90,000 people online. It was in Mexico. And they asked me to talk about education because I've been working on reinventing education for 40 years. And I've had results with adults and results with inner city kids that are really significant. And the key is bringing the right brain back, the mystical brain. And not at the expense of science and the left brain, but to bring that balance back again. Because this issue of gender balance, it plays out in our minds and even in our brains. It's about the right brain and the left brain both being given attention in school, not just the left brain, which by itself can bore a lot of people when they're young. So there are ways to, and not only ways, but there's an obligation, responsibility we have to create and to bring forth the new forms. And that's what I love about Rupert's work, for example. And when we work together for science and spirituality to be dialoguing and engaging together and creating new questions and new possibilities, instead of each of us clinging to our own fundamentalist dogmas
right.
and throwing darts at each other. It's like an adolescent game,